Welcome to the Greg Show. We're going to jump back into the world of After Effects here with the preparation of an exercise that will involve a technique known as parenting, which is pretty critical for managing multiple layers in After Effects in order to achieve specific animation results. In this case, we're going to be creating character movements. It's kind of specific for this exercise just to make these figures move in kind of a fun, inorganic way, but it really does provide some insight into how else we might be able to link up and provide unique movements in our animation and motion graphics work. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of work with a file that I'm providing for you that's called the, what did I call it? It's called the parent parts. So I'm going to import parent parts. Double click in the project window, go into my content folder, parent parts. There you are. Parent parts is a multi-layered PSD. In fact, it's so multi-layered that there are groups or folders that have multiple layers in there. If we want to take a peek, I will open it up and just give you a quick glimpse. Photoshop file. We've got a Star Wars Rebel figurine. I had this guy when I was very young, and it makes me feel good when I see that guy. And then we have Spock. Yeah, whatever. I feel fine seeing Spock. Not quite the feeling I get when I see Star Wars guys. We have a furry monster, which is just a random character with no association to any pop culture. Then we have Barbie. I had to change Barbie's eyes to red and her hair to green because I'm kind of anti-Barbie, having a daughter. Not real stoked about Barbie. Then we got Animal. Yes, I love Animal. So these guys are all different groups that are broken into multiple layers that represent, here I'll just show you Animal for example, represent a head, a torso, upper and lower, different parts of your arms, and you get the idea. So this file is what we want to use in this exercise, and I am going to import as composition, retain layer sizes, because I want to make sure that each layer of each character component has its own dimension relative to our work area. And I will hit open. It's going to ask me one more time, what do you want? I want composition. I want to retain layer sizes. This all looks fine. I don't have any Photoshop 3D. It doesn't really matter. Even if you don't have it, you can just say, yeah, whatever, After Effects, just be happy. So upon import, I have something that is in my project window seen as a composition, parent parts, and then a folder, which is all of the ingredients of that Photoshop file. If I open it up, I will see a composition for Animal, a composition for Barbie, a composition for Furry Monster, and then just a crap ton of files, PSD layers, a composition for Spock, and a composition for this Star Wars Rebel fighter from Planet Hoth, of course. Now, this is awesome. And that's one of the benefits of importing any materials into After Effects as a composition, because it reads Photoshop files in a way in which it retains the groups and their subsequent files into a native environment for After Effects, which is a composition. So if I was to open up any of these subcomps here, and if I wanted to be really anal, I would say, hey, you know what? Let's make a folder, and let's go down to the bottom of my project window, click on the folder button, and I'm just going to call it layers. And I can then take all of these Photoshop layers, making sure I don't grab any compositions, and stick them in there. And then look at that, it's so much tidier. This is the portrait of a very organized and proficient motion graphic artist. Someone who says, all right, let's just make sure that I am not looking at a bunch of files and junk all at once. I want to be able to move quickly and locate what I need per its organization method. So now this looks a lot cleaner. Let's just say that I want to animate animal. So I could double click on animal, and that will open the comp. Or maybe I want to have a little preemptive organization going and say, all right, well, I don't want to animate just yet. I want to make sure that I specify the final output of what my goal or intended movie is. So I'll click on the composition button, and I'll call it animal animate. 2 eyes, nope. So I've got my preset of the NTSC D1 widescreen square pixel in my square pixels, and the duration I'll go with perhaps 10. Background doesn't really matter. I'll leave it black. So here's a new comp and it's totally empty. So if I were to desire animal being animated in this comp, I should zoom in a little bit. I will bring the animal comp into this one, and that is a product of nesting, and this is something that you should be getting the hang of. What nesting means is that it's merely a condensing of information into a single layer inside of another composition. As soon as I do that, I notice something going on here. I notice that my animal comp and the layer that represents its information only exists for 5 seconds. So if I were to put my playhead past 5 seconds, everything is toast. It's gone. That is because the last time that I created a composition, I defined it as 5 seconds. So upon import, it assumes that the duration of the compositions that are created through this Photoshop import, it'll be the same duration, 5 seconds. I would need to go to the animal comp when there's a tab for it here, since I opened it earlier, and I will go to composition settings and have to change that duration to what my intended animation usage of this file would be, 10 seconds. So I hit OK. This file is now 10 seconds long, but there's all kinds of crap that goes on in the background with After Effects that you don't know as a beginner user. So if I look at my timeline, I would assume that everything is just fine. But After Effects is not so kind to adjustments like this. I need to zoom out of my timeline. So I'm going down to the lower little magnification deal to zoom all the way out. And when I do that, I see that all of my layers that represent animal are still confined to the original time limit of 5 seconds, which means I need to go to the very end of this timeline and select all. I can do two things. I can either grab the end point, and drag it, or as you've already become accustomed to after the Air Miles exercise, you would know that the shortcut key to extend the out point for these layers would be Option right bracket. So now all of the artwork for Animal exists for a total of 10 seconds. This is one of those weird limitations of After Effects where it only allows pixel information per layer to exist according to the composition that it lives in. So now that I have changed it, I can then go to my animal animation comp and I see that there it is, there's information, but oh man, it still has an out point at 5 seconds. But there's like the ghost footage. It says, well, there's information beyond 5 seconds. But when you first brought me into this comp, it was only 5 seconds long, so that's how long this layer will live. Until I grab that out point, and you need to get used to grabbing the out point versus the layer itself, because it's a big difference. You need the east and west arrow in order to grab and drag that out point so that the little animal, cute, adorable animal, will exist for 10 seconds. So here's the cool thing about nesting comps or precomposing, is that here is animal represented in all of its layers by only one layer right here, which is fantastic when you want to manage a layer or an object by just one attribute. I just hit S for scale and it gave me my scale attribute. And I'm just going to drag that 100% to a little bit lower. So now animal fits inside of my composition. So if I wanted him to be like hanging out in front of a brick wall or a wood fence or something like that, I could go find that. I'm going to double click my project window. I have pictures, art, and textures, and wood. Do I want that one or this one? I'll take this one. So I just brought in a new JPEG file. I'm going to bring that JPEG file into, oh, it thought it was a frickin' JPEG sequence. Undo. Because it was named Wood 1, Wood 2, I just jumped past this. Okay, so I have a file called Wood 1 and Wood 2. They're different fences. There's a fence and there's a fence. It thinks that because they are named and numbered sequentially, that I'm interested in importing a sequence. I'm not. I didn't see this. This needs to be unchecked. JPEG sequence? No. I just want a file. So now I can bring it in and it exists behind animal. Let's scale it down just a touch. Maybe place it, well, whatever, it looks fine. So there's animal on a wood background. Did I need to show you that? No, but I'm just trying to help you remember how you could perhaps import and establish a setting. Okay, animal. Here he is, scaled up to the proper dimension, or down in this case, so that he fits in my comp. How do I animate him? Well, from here, if I double click, it takes me to the animal comp, where I have access to all of the different layers that make up animal. So now we get into the heart of parenting and establishing a relationship for proper animation. If you think about your own body or any human skeleton, you would understand that there is a relationship or a hierarchy of our limbs or extremities into a core. And generally, our core would be our hips. And in animals' case, it's our lower torso. So our lower torso here is going to be the master parent. And everything will be ultimately directed to a parent-child relationship so that it points to the lower torso. So the head needs to have two adjustments made to it. First of all, the anchor point is currently existing in the very middle of that layer's dimension. So that layer might have a dimension of like 250 by 200. And so that middle anchor point is the middle coordinate of those dimensions of x and y. You can see the anchor point. I'll zoom in a little bit. The anchor point is the little crosshair. I know that if I were to rotate or pivot my head, it's not happening from behind my nose. It's happening more toward a location of my neck. So there is a tool known as the pan behind tool. The pan behind tool is the group of diamonds and whatnot where I can grab that sucker and move it down to where the hinge point would be. And that's more appropriate here so that if I were to access rotation, I just hit R, and I rotate the head, it feels better than rotating in the middle of the head. Okay, so we grab the pan behind tool, we relocate the pivot point for the head. This needs to be done for every extremity. So if I go to the lower torso, I said earlier, is kind of the mother layer. And, you know, I don't know if I need to move the anchor point for that one. But the upper torso would pivot on one of those vertebrae that is close to the lower torso. So I'm going to put it right down by the belly button. And then we have a right arm upper. Well, that would mean that this arm rotates up by the shoulder. Left arm upper, shoulder. I swear to God, I saw a mouse run across my floor. Not cool. What do I do about that? I found a mouse in my chicken coop today that was being eaten by my chickens. Pretty cool. And I digress. Okay. So the right hand. Right hand obviously would pivot from the wrist. Right arm would pivot from the elbow. Left hand, wrist. Left arm lower, elbow. Left leg upper obviously is going to pivot from like the hip area. Scroll down here. Left leg upper, hip area. Right foot, it's going to pivot from like the ankle. Left foot, ankle. Right leg lower, it's going to pivot from the knee. Left leg lower from the knee. So now what I have done is I've gone through and established the proper orientation of rotation or scale, movement, whatever, per extremity, but I have still not established the relationship of how they would behave according to a skeleton structure. So now what I need to do is I need to say, hey head, you are going to be parented, and I'm going to look at this column here called parent. And if you don't see the parent, oh, you always see the parent. Parent is a column here in the timeline where there is a pull-down menu of all of the layers that are currently existing in this comp. And this is how you can choose a layer's parent. You can do that, or you can use this little swirly gig where you can drag and point it to the layer that you want it to be a child of. So the head belongs to the upper torso. So I'm going to, for this case, I'm just going to go head, you go to number 3, upper torso. Lower torso is the parent, the master, mother, or father. And it doesn't need a parent, so I'm leaving that one alone. But the upper torso does belong to the lower torso. So I'm going to go to the pull-down menu, and I'm going to choose number 2, lower torso. Notice that head is not available because head is a child now to the upper torso, and you can't specify a child to another child. It needs to be a clear hierarchy, and you can't assign a parent-child relationship to a layer of its own self. So I set it to the lower torso. Right upper arm should belong to, and this time I'm going to use the pick whip. This is the little swirly gig pick whip. It belongs to upper torso. Right upper arm, upper torso. Right hand belongs to right arm lower. Right arm lower belongs to right arm upper. It gets a little convoluted. It gets a little crazy, but you just need to think about my hand. What would be the parent of a hand? Well, it's going to be the lower arm. So left hand, the parent will be left arm lower. Lower arm would be parented to left, that's left leg. Okay, is that the leg? No, it's a bad name. Oh no, bad name. It's okay. No, it is. It's the right name. Where's my left arm upper? Oh, there it is. Left arm upper. Oh, see how confusing it gets. I'm a pro. And I'm already getting a little confused. Okay, now I'm on to legs. Left leg. It needs to be parented to the lower torso. Where are you? Lower torso. I should pull this up a little bit, make it easier for me. Okay, right leg upper, parented to the lower torso. The foot needs to be parented to the lower leg, right, left foot, lower leg. Now the lower legs need to be parented to the upper leg. Oh, it's just nonsense. But if you think about it, now that I've made my own connections of hierarchy, I will show you why this is important. And then if you think about it, it'll be like, oh, of course. So if I take the left leg upper layer and I access its rotation and I rotate it, since I moved its pivot point, it makes sense that it's rotating from the hip. Okay, and since I established a proper layer hierarchy, if I rotate my left leg upper, the children, which is left leg lower and left foot, move with it. But if I choose left leg lower and rotate it, it is its own layer and it only has one child that will follow it, which is the foot. So I can rotate the left lower leg by itself and the foot will follow. So if I were to bend it like this and then go back up and tweak the upper leg, you can see that they still move together. And then at the very end of this chain is the foot, which can rotate on its own. It is merely a child to the parent that is directly above it, which is the left leg lower, which is a child to the layer above it, which is the left leg upper. And that is an establishment of hierarchy through a parenting structure. So, if I wanted to have fun with the animation of all of this, I'll just hit reset. Reset. What did I not reset? This one. Reset. So, anything that I want to animate needs to be keyframed. So maybe the first thing that I want to do is just kind of like make this guy feel like he's dancing. And this gets tricky because you're trying to manage like 15 layers in a way that seems choreographed. So if I were to take everything, I just did Command A, and I want to mark a rotation keyframe for every layer. I'm going to hold down Option and I'm going to press R, and that is an automatic keyframe recording of every layer, and every layer is currently 0 degrees. So boom, done deal. Every layer is currently recorded in its state. If I move to 2 seconds and I want to start playing with this guy, it would be in my best interest to go get my rotation tool, not select anything really, but then I can grab multiple layers with this rotation tool, which on the number pad is the W. Sorry, I'm already starting to lose my focus because I'm animating. This is what happens. Whenever you animate, you forget to talk. Yeah, that is what happens. Alright, so there's in 2 seconds time, I have now just gone through and created the slight movement of animal saying, hey, he's almost getting ready for like a guitar or something, if he was left-handed. Okay, so there is just a rotation movement for each layer, and because of the hierarchy that I've set up, nothing falls apart. There are, of course, areas like the elbows where you start to see a breaking up of space. Because this file was just cut up, it wasn't totally prepared in a way to animate professionally. If this was a professional deal, this arm would be painted underneath with a sort of a half arc so that you wouldn't see any like evidence that we were splitting apart the layer. Do you want to see what I'm talking about? I'll zoom in 100%. Here we go. This layer right here, forearm, should ultimately have a rounded tip. So if I select that layer, I can go to Edit, Edit Original, and it's going to open it up in Photoshop. I need to find the layer. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Did I get it? I didn't select it. That is the right arm lower, right arm lower. No, it's left arm lower. Left arm lower. This one right here. So if I isolate that layer, grab my paintbrush, and paint that sucker or something like this. That's just one color. If I was really pro, I would start to try to shade it. Good enough for me. You can see I already did this once with the lower part of the arm. And that part should be relatively hidden with the hand. But alright, so I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to go back to After Effects, and it should automatically bloop, update It just shifted because I'd moved its pixel information. Kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to move that guy, move that guy. But here you see the crack is gone, so I just hit it. So now it's not so obvious that there's a joint right there. If I wanted to be really awesome, I'd go back and I would do it to all of the layers so these little cracks don't show up. The knees. I tried to preempt some of that with a couple of these files, but didn't hit everything. So there is the relationship of parenting and hierarchy in regard to being able to animate. And this is for the character bag of parts animation exercise. If I forgot anything, I will make another movie, but I think I covered it all. Yeah, I think I got it all. So we'll move on to more animation in our next movie.